What's going on, everyone? So here we have a thread about some leaks that just happened, and they closed it down because they realized it's getting pretty crazy. They're not really liking the response and the prices, but we got some confirmation here according to Kepler. Then we have the older thread where that happened, so we can take a look at some things. So the interesting thing about this is that he says next gen specs are finalized and that it's not made up. So corroborates MLID leaked specs. Most likely PlayStation 6 handheld, 24 gigabytes. Yeah, that thing's gonna be like pretty expensive. PS6, it's 30 gigabytes. And then we got the Magnus, which is 36 gigabytes, if that's what they're calling it, right? And then you got PS6 at 1200 tops. We're like, okay, so these specs are interesting. We know that PS6 handheld is definitely gonna be like 500 plus bucks. No doubt about that, maybe more than that. I mean, 24 gigabytes of RAM. That's the stuff you see the Ally doing over in the rock world, and look how much that thing is. Do you think this thing's only gonna be 500? Oh, I think PS6 might be like 700 plus. Maybe a little bit more, and the handle's obviously gonna be cheaper. So down here, Hermes says, I'll try to post his quotes as to not to misquote him. He was asked about the MLID PS6 Xbox spec leaks. His response, he said both are accurate. So to him, the handheld is going to have 24 gigabytes of RAM. The PlayStation 6 handheld, it is real. They don't say anything about an Xbox handheld here or anything. But what they do talk about is the Magnus, maybe PC hybrid, the PlayStation 6, and then the tops on the PlayStation 6. So obviously the Magnus will, I think it's going to be more beefier, more powerful, which kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? Definitely what Microsoft's going for. But like I said before, I think they're going to be closer to 1,000 and maybe more. So that actually makes sense. And then Kepler said specs are very much finalized when it comes to RAM, like up here we see. So we know the the Magnus is going to have 36 gigabytes of RAM, maybe more. Who knows if it'll be upgradable to PC, and they're going to be going up to 30. I think for PlayStation 6, that's a little bit of a strange number. I would have rather seen 32 gigs, because it kind of makes sense for just doubling your average, 16. We'll see though, he says right here, that this will tell us a lot about what he's saying if this changes, right? Because he's saying this is finalized. Like there's no changing this. He also said most likely 24 gigabytes for PS6 handheld, 30 gigabytes for PS6 console, and 36 gigabytes for Xbox Magnus. So he's saying this, by the way, and it's confirmed. Difference between PlayStation 6 and the Xbox Magnus. And then going down here gets interesting because he says, I don't see how PS6 can match the Magnus, stats, which I think makes sense. It has fewer CPU cores, as we figured out, lower CPU frequency, fewer COOs, fewer ROPs, lower GPU frequency, less cache, and memory bandwidth. Which, all that type of stuff is like saying I gotta have more hardcore, PCs and all that. But if the PS6 is like $700 or whatever, or maybe 600, I think probably around 700 though. Who knows though, with the way things are going, right? We know they're still gonna sell like cake. Sony can still sell a lot of consoles. Magnus is more for the hardcore PC enthusiasts. They're not really trying to compete on a market directly with the PS6. I do not see that happening. I see Microsoft doing like I said, the Steam Deck approach, where it's like, you can get it from my website, maybe Best Buy, and another outlet if they are still with Walmart or Target or whatever, to sell like limited stock. I can see them doing something like that, but they're not gonna like go all in like that, have it sitting around. It's not a huge difference, of course, because diminishing returns are gonna be so high too, but it will be playing better. Obviously, it's like a better spec PC would play better. But Magnus should have better performance in 100% of games, unlike this gen where it was more of a 50-50 push, as we know, because like sometimes Sony has marketing lead, and they're going to sell more copies on there so they can make that profit. It's just easy to port, going from the PS4 Pro to the PS5 and the PS5 to PS5 Pro. Much easier, you know what I mean? Whereas like on the Xbox Series, you kind of have to go to your way, do the S as well. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but some of those developers, they would just bull rush them on those settings. They wouldn't really want to do that. Definitely when the generation was starting off, people had to be used to the new settings and have to do more consoles and games. Whereas like they were used to doing maybe one back then or maybe two, but now you have all these different tablets, all these different devices, the Switch handheld and docked, all these consoles, and it's a lot. So they prioritized, and we didn't really see that difference, but they're saying here 100% that's going to happen because we're kind of past all that. I can believe that. PS6 tops should be 1200 tops. Not that int 8 matters with FP 468 existing pretty much here. We're gonna see more about like the tops You know what that really means. Pretty insane leaps though. But like I said, guys, if this all is going to be true, I don't see how these can be like, yeah, I don't see how the Magnus is not going to be close to $1,000 or more. Pretty insane leap if you ask me. A 2027 launch is looking very likely. I'm excited personally, he said. And they're saying that PS6 may be coming out November 11th, 2027. I was saying like 2027 at the earliest, or 2028 at the latest. Definitely, if we look at the FTC documents of court, when they went to fight Activision, they were saying like, the next console launch is going to be either 2028, at the earliest 7. Speaker says, I'm excited, but even if the power gap ends up being the bigger between the Xbox PS6, I'm not sure it don't matter as much. We reached that kind of technical ceiling. The diminishing returns are going to be so high. That's what I'm saying. It's not like the PS2 Xbox or PS4 Xbox era where you could clearly see the difference with the naked eye. It's hard to do that. So I just found that zooming in, all that other stuff. So I think, as like I said, as we start to get to that point, it's what's more entry level and what can you trust and build into. Are you carrying over your profile? Because that's all people care about. That's the biggest thing. You're not going to really move them. You know what I mean? So that's kind of hard to do. Definitely like getting people off of Steam, like getting people off Nintendo profile and PlayStation because they're all carrying over now. And that's what Phil Spencer said. This after you get that carryover line, it's pretty much guaranteed you're not going to be able to move them. So you're going to have to find a way to go to them and get business. And he says this can't be cheap. We have 24 gigabytes of RAM for a handheld. Well, we see that with the Ally X, right? That's not going to be cheap. That's why I was like, I don't know about that. I think it's going to be like $500-$600 probably. Easily. Maybe 600 plus. Okay, this can't be cheap. Most higher-end current PC handhelds right now have 24 gigabytes of RAM. See what I mean? For a device released in 2 years, that seems about right. The Xbox Ally X has 24 gigabytes, but it's still 2 years out, so that technology could dwindle down, and it could be about that price around that time. You never know, and who knows how the hell the market's going to fluctuate, go crazy up or down. As of lately, we know things are a little bit way too backwards and continuously keep going up. The chipsets are being greedy too. They're not dropping the price of the chips, none of that. This guy says, feel kind of weird to be someone who bought the PS4 and PS5 on day one, and yet I couldn't care less about the PS6 for now. The very long cross-gen period really bummed me out. Unless the PS5 dies, I can't just see myself getting a PS6 until like 2030. It's still, like I said, it's getting to that point now where people are going to be happy with those PC specs to play anything. And they're kind of like having those average mid PCs as you see on Steam. Most people use probably a 4060 or something like that, and it all works. And if they were optimizing things, it would be okay. And that's why Sony's doing an ecosystem where it would be PS4, PS5, PS6, and the handheld, because you'll have all that monthly active users. And it'll just be like different PC settings sitting around. Nintendo do like Nintendo Switch 1, Nintendo Switch 2, maybe 3, and maybe some mid-gen stuff with OLEDs. Obviously, Sony's will be more upgradable because they do mid-gens. We don't know if Nintendo's going to do that, but we know they're doing OLED and probably a late model and stuff like that. But like this guy says, everything's going to be pushing 1K by then, if not more. Hold on to your punch. LPDDR super cheap. GDDR memory pretty cheap and a small part of the overall cost of the system. So the thing is, too, is like they are doing GDDR7. That is coming, guys. That is confirmed. The LAX is 900 pounds on a PS6 handle. From what I understand, it's supposed to be a cheap scoop for PS6. This guy says, shouldn't it be better if like the thread got actively used for these things? So if you keep going down, this is the thread they were talking about. And this guy says Xbox going balls out here for the handheld. LOLK, because it's like, damn, dude, that's a lot. $549 sounds right for the PS6. No way, man. I'd say more like $649 or something like that, maybe $700. And this guy says 30 gigabytes is a weird number. You can get 36 gigabytes of DDR7 using 3 gigabyte chips and a 3 gigabyte clamshell configuration on a 192 bus. So that makes sense for the Magnus. Correct. Wonder if Sony will pull a PS4 with 4 gigabytes and then 8 gigabytes since it's a 2027 release. Modulus seems to be in production next year. I wouldn't roll out the 40 gigabyte PS6 home console, so even a 48 gigabyte Magnus. Same for the PS6 handheld. Yeah, you never know. They could add more. It could be upgradable. We do not know that yet. But if we keep going down here, guys, this is where they close the thread off. The administrator right here. He says, just like last time, we're going to keep the leaks, rumors, and speculations to this thread. If only for my and other staff sanity. May God have mercy on us all, because he knows how expensive it's going to be. So you go over to this thread, and that's when they're believing that the PS6 right here and Xbox, $600, and some people are saying $700 after that. Most people are voting for the $600-$700 range for the PlayStation 6. For Xbox, I think it's going to be more expensive, obviously. And that's where this happened right here. So we kind of get the idea here, right? This launch speculation. And then if you go all the way over here on the last thread, this is where it pops up. We just need to get to here today. I'll take you guys right to it. People are pretty much stopping here 17 minutes ago. I don't know if it will land at $549, but it will absolutely land below $700 on a PS5 Pro launch price, depending on how Sony wants to keep it. I know what you mean. That's why I was like, that's very interesting. So people are saying there's no way the PS6 is going to be cheaper than the PS5 Pro. But if it's much more powerful, then why would anybody ever go get the Pro? That's always the dilemma for me, but you know, I get what they're saying. It's just interesting stuff. Just like why are old cards still up there with some of these other cards? Because they just don't want to drop down things, and it can get ridiculous like that. So he's saying I'm firmly sticking with my prediction of $500 for the PS6 digital, $600 for the PS6 disc, and portable will match one of those two prices. I forgot about the digital only and the disc drive. Maybe Sony won't even do a disc drive anymore. You never know though, because I'm thinking more like this, and then maybe the disc drive being 700. Who knows though? So this guy says, as per Kepler's informed speculation, the PS6 portable should have a BOM of $500. I expect the home console to be around that number. For comparison, the PS5 had around a $449. PS6 portable to be sold at break even, and the home consoles at profit. So $500 for the former and $549 for the home consoles. This is all just speculation. Dude, I don't know how they think it's going to be cheaper than 600 or even 700. This is what I think, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the price point of the PS6, the handheld. Knowing the Magnus obviously going to be more expensive. I don't know why they're getting to these ranges. This is insane. There's no way it's going to be that cheap because you couldn't get those specs like that. No way. All right, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Peace.